From the Weather NorCal Command Center, this is your morning update.
Cascade Paint and Supply is Reading's oldest family-owned paint store, established in 1953. We are the largest Dunn Edwards dealer in the nation, and most of our products are made in the U.S. Our friendly and knowledgeable staff are ready to answer your questions and help you today.
Well, get ready. North State Award-winning AJ Lee and Blue Summit are bringing their high-energy, jaw-dropping roots sound to the Cascade Theater on Saturday, November 1st. Boy, these guys are awesome. They're from a Santa Cruz, semi-local, and they're redefining bluegrass with soul, grit, and California charm. Don't miss your chance to see this group live in concert. Tickets are on sale now. Grab yours today at cascadetheater.org. All right, let's get into your weather headlines. And you know what? We're talking about dry and mild conditions for the rest of the week. You know, we're talking about this rain. We've been talking about it since last week. We've been talking about it all week, right? It's not here yet. It's still going to take its own sweet time getting here, but it will be significantly cooler and windier and wetter by the weekend, right? So the rain arrives for most of us on average Friday night. The coast in the afternoon for some of you, and then early morning hours for others, especially off to the east. And then mainly dry and mild for next week, minus maybe a slight chance for a shower on Monday. So here's a look at your Kruger's Quickcast. A quick look at your forecast for today so you know what to expect. Do you work outdoors? You're looking in the right place because you're going to get a quick look at your forecast for today. You're talking about a cool start to the day. Make sure you've got that morning coat. Looks like some fog along the coast, maybe even a little bit of light drizzle there, but otherwise it's going to be mainly clear for almost everyone. Now, the storm system is brewing over the Gulf of Alaska. It's there. So you're out and about today, just note that there's a big old storm over the Gulf of Alaska that it will be impacting us over the weekend. And we're going to talk about that in more detail in our deeper dive here in just a bit. But for today, temperatures 75 to 80 degrees for that daytime high for most of us in the valley, upper 60s, low 70s in the mountains, and we're talking upper 50s to low 60s for the coast. Let's take a look at that 7-day outlook. Dry today, dry tomorrow, but yeah, by Friday night, Saturday, you've got showers. Now, this is going to be kind of the weekend where it's cool, wet, and windy. Now, there'll be times you'll see a break from the wet weather. There'll be times when you see actually some heavy rainfall, maybe an isolated thunderstorm, maybe even some breaks in the clouds, but it's just going to be off and on through the weekend. That may linger on into Monday before we really start to dry things out and warm up for Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. Now, for the coast, I'd say Del Norte County afternoon, Humboldt County afternoon, evening, and for Trinity County more like the evening when that rain kicks in, and then off and on showers for the weekend. And we may still keep a slight chance for showers even into Tuesday, Wednesday of next week for the coast. But everyone else should be looking at more of a drier trend. Now for Siskiyou County, evening, overnight is when you can see it on Friday. Modoc County, Eastern Mountains, probably overnight into the early morning hours on Saturday. And then off and on through the weekend. And by the way, snow levels on average around 5,000, 6,000 feet Saturday, 4,000 to 5,000 feet by Sunday. And then it looks like maybe that lingering chance on Monday before we dry things out for Tuesday and Wednesday. That's a look at your Kruger's Quickcast. Let's get into that deeper dive forecast. And I want to start off by let's talk about what an atmospheric river is. You've been hearing about it. You've probably been seeing on social media. And I got to be honest, I'm seeing some social media outlets that are, putting the big headline, atmospheric river to soak Northern California. Oh, there's nothing more that frustrates me because this is not going to be a strong event. We've seen much, much stronger events in the past. So before we get into how this one's going to impact us, let's talk about what an atmospheric river is first and foremost. You need to understand that because an atmospheric river is not a storm per se, but it's an ingredient for a storm. It's the source of moisture for storms. Okay, so here you go. Here's the jet stream, and that jet stream is tapping into subtropical moisture. So you have this river of moisture that can be aimed at any particular location along the coast. Now, sometimes you may have heard that expression over the years. It's like taking a garden hose and just aiming it right at a particular location and just dumping a lot of rainfall. That can be the case if it stays there for a while, a day, 2 days. But the atmospheric river that's impacting us, not going to be here for very long. We'll get into that a little bit later. So that's what it is. Basically just tapping into that atmosphere and to that moisture moving into Northern California. So what happens is, a lot of times you get these winds that blow up the mountains. And we got that prime example for us, right? Along the coast, tends to see a lot of rainfall from these atmospheric rivers. You also see it working on the upslope of these mountains here. That really helps to squeeze out that rain, and in the higher elevations, even some snow as well. But then when you get on the back side of those mountains, what's happening is that air is sinking. And we get more of a shadowing effect in the valley at times, so we tend to not see as much rainfall for the valley. But then east of the valley, you see more mountains like this, and you see it squeeze out more moisture. So when we look at the rainfall totals, we'll kind of talk about this impact here and why some areas see a lot more rain than others. Because that's the thing. We talk about the many microclimates here, and these atmospheric rivers can also have an impact, a much bigger impact for some and a much smaller impact for others. Again, because of our microclimates, because of the mountainous terrain that we have. So here it is. Remember we were looking at, there's that river of moisture. Now this is a very narrow band of moisture, and on top of that, this is not a ton. I mean, this, when you start getting into the, the pinks and the blues, that's really a lot of moisture. We're kind of in that mid-section there, but still a decent amount of moisture that it's tapping into. But remember I was talking about like taking a garden hose and just aiming it there for a day or two. That's not the case with this one. So by 6 p.m. Friday, you can see it's kind of on the north coast, right? Look what happens as we go into midnight on Saturday. That shifts to the south. Now it's basically between, the Bay Area and the north coast, right? You see it kind of aimed just kind of toward the Redding area, for example. But you see it was here by midnight. In 6 hours, it shifts there. 6 more hours, we take it at 6 a.m. Now it's kind of aimed at the Bay Area and Sacramento. We are no longer really under the influence of that atmospheric river by the time we get into a Saturday midday. It's way down to our south. Now there is this batch of moisture here, semi-characteristic of an atmospheric river, but bottom line, it's just some moisture really kind of heading our way. That's going to be a source for more rain going through the weekend. But when we talk about an atmospheric river, the main impact, the impacts of an atmospheric river per se, is only going to be Friday night, Saturday morning, and then it's just good old-fashioned moisture after that with storm systems, okay? We talk about also the intensity of these atmospheric rivers. How strong are they? AR1, atmospheric river 1, being the weakest, AR5 being the strongest. So we're looking at the coast now and how it's going to impact. We've been seeing it kind of getting into the green and even a little bit of the yellow here over the last few days. Latest forecast models are really backing down on that now. Barely getting into that AR2. So what that means is we're just getting a lot of beneficial rain. I don't anticipate any flooding. If there is minor flooding, it won't last for very long. Some of the creeks and streams, right? But then you can see it just really levels off after that. Now, as we start getting over those mountains, right, look what happens. Now we're not even getting into AR2 or AR1. So this is, again, just some beneficial rainfall coming in, and then it kind of dips down as we go into the weekend and even more so for next week. So you can see here from an atmospheric river standpoint, this is not a big deal. And I don't want to, the thing is, it just frustrates me to no end when media outlets and even social media outlets use the atmospheric river term as a dramatic term and as a way to pull you in, say it's going to drench us. No, this is not going to be a huge ordeal, folks. So here we go. You will notice, and let's just talk about this here. You got this cold front. There's that atmospheric river beginning to take shape, colder air. We're going to see gusty winds. I mean, especially along the coast, you're going to feel it. And that's where we're going to feel the biggest impacts. Heaviest rainfall, strongest winds, right? That's what we're dealing with. We're talking gusts upwards of 40, 45 miles per hour at times as this cold front passes through, and the one behind that passes through as well. So let's take a look at that. Cool, wet, and windy for the weekend. There's that cold front coming in. Now by 5 p.m., we're going to take a close look at the timing of this, but I just want to show you the progression. So you've got this atmospheric river right here, okay? That atmospheric river shifts to the south on Saturday. Now it's just good old-fashioned storms. We're not talking Pineapple Express. We're not talking Coconut Connection. We're not talking, atmospheric river for that matter. It's just some good old-fashioned rain. Storm system number 2, that's coming in on Saturday afternoon. Now this could bring us, again, some gusty winds as that cold front passes through. You're talking about some heavy rainfall at times, but not all day long. You're talking about breaks in that. And then you're also talking some cooler air moving in. Now we've got storm system number 3 right here. That warm front will kind of come through, keeping those snow levels a little bit higher, but then behind that, that's when the snow levels drop down to is about 4,000 to 5,000 feet. But then by Monday, it's all pretty much out of here. Now this system here looks like it's going to mainly push up to our north by next Tuesday. So there you go. Let's take a look at the timing of all this now. So we're getting some pretty good agreement on the forecast models on the overall timing. Today, not much going on, right? You're talking mainly sunny skies, some fog there along the coast, mostly cloudy skies. Here we go. Friday, midday, it's just knocking on the door of the North Coast, in particular Del Norte County. So we may start to see showers develop through the early afternoon hours in Del Norte County, and it's trying to push southward even by 5 p.m., for typical spots to see the heaviest rainfall. Western Siskiyou County, all of Humboldt, even northwestern portions of Trinity County. Heavy band of rainfall right here. This is going to be the heaviest now. All right. Here's the atmospheric river by midnight, Friday night into Saturday morning. Right there. There's the atmospheric river. So no longer impacted by atmospheric river here, but you see some of the heavier rainfall. And you know what? I mean, we could see some of that decent rain late Friday night, early Saturday morning for parts of the valley. And that works its way up into Modoc County as well. All right, here's the atmospheric river right here. You see that? Nice little stream of moisture. Now, remember I was talking about the mountains and the valley see some shadowing, what you're seeing here, but now it's going back up those mountains and we're squeezing out a lot of that moisture so we could still see some heavy rainfall for many areas east of the valley here, right? But there again, atmospheric river. Saturday morning, 6 a.m. And then it's all out to the southeast. So when you see headlines that say atmospheric river to drench California this weekend, just scroll past it because it's lying to you. Because by the time we get into Saturday midday, no longer under the influence of that atmospheric river, and we're just getting some good old-fashioned moisture coming in and good old-fashioned storm systems coming in. Now Saturday, really just off and on showers, could see some brief periods of heavy rainfall, could also see some isolated thunderstorms, not only for the mountains, but even the valley. But you see, this is not very widespread, okay? So we're kind of starting to see a bit of a break. But then the next storm system is coming in Sunday. This one looks to pack a little bit more of a punch, has a bit more moisture with it, cooler air. You can start to see the snow. So snow levels on average on Saturday, 5,000, down to as low as 4,000 feet on Sunday. Some of the lowest we've seen so far for the season, by the way. There's some of that heavier rainfall, and then it kind of starts to kind of break apart by midday Sunday. Sunday afternoon, it starts to kind of break apart as well. And then, as I mentioned, most likely drying out as we go into Monday, Tuesday of next week. There may be some lingering showers Monday. Still seeing some discrepancy in the long-range forecast models. But let's take a look at the forecast totals. Not totally happy with these numbers, but let's break it down for you. I think, on average, we are talking about I'd say 1.5 to 3 inches of rain for the North Coast in general. Most of it to the north and even down to the south. Now, there are going to be some areas you can see upwards of 3 to 8, even 4 inches of rain because you see these little pockets of red. That's getting into the 4 inches, right? But then you'll see little pockets of heavier rainfall here. Remember I was talking about it's the coast, the coastal range, the Trinity Alps, all of that squeezes out lots of moisture, so you see heavier rainfall there, right? But then we get a little bit of shadowing in the valley. You see less rainfall as a result, although it's sometimes the north end of the valley, like Redding, can sometimes get in on some of that heavier rainfall. Then those winds blow up the mountains, squeezes out that moisture, and you see heavier rainfall for the mountains east of the valley. And then typically we get a little bit of shadowing going off to the eastern portions of California. So heaviest rainfall, another band of heavier rainfall here, everywhere else not as impressive. Again, don't take these numbers to be exact. As I mentioned, 1.5, I'd say 1.5 to 3 inches for the coast, upwards of 4 inches in some areas for the coast, and I'd say for the valley, 1/2 inch, give or take. That's about what we're looking at here. So when you are experiencing the weekend, you're going to be on the coast going, yes, I'm experiencing this atmospheric river I've been hearing headlines about. But when you're in the valley, you're going to be like, where's this atmospheric river I've been hearing about? That's what you're going to be thinking here over the weekend because, yes, there will be periods of time you're going to see some moderate to heavy rainfall, but you're going to see a lot of breaks in there as well. So it's going to be kind of one of those off and on type of events. Let's talk about the winds, because the winds is something that you've got to keep in mind as well. It's not just the rain. It's not even just the higher elevation snow, but it's the winds. Not today. Don't worry about that. But by the time we get into Friday, all right, Friday afternoon, especially along the coast, winds are really starting to kind of ramp up. That main cold front will produce some gusty winds. Cold front number 2 comes through on Saturday. Now we're starting to see just overall widespread gusty winds across the region, 20 to even 30 miles per hour. That moves out, winds die down, but they pick back up again with cold front number 3. And look at this, you're talking gusts approaching that 50 mile an hour range. You know, we're getting into the category where we may eventually even see some wind advisories out towards the north coast. Gusty winds for the higher elevations. So Sunday, this is a day to really look out for when it comes to the strongest winds, because then we go into Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening, that cold front passes, we're starting to see the winds die down, and things are starting to kind of wind down in general. Now, temperatures are also dropping. We're going from 80 for Reading today down to about 60 by Sunday, over a 20-degree drop. But then we're just kind of level out in the low to mid 70s through next week. So looking at your lake levels, you can see no big drops there. 105% of the historical average for Shasta Lake, 121% for Trinity, and 102% out towards Lake Oroville. By the way, another beach hazard statement has been issued for the coast. That will take effect later this afternoon through 5 p.m. on Friday. It's that risk for sneaker waves. We're really not seeing much change overall in these wave heights here. Eventually, we are going to see a small correct advisory, though, later this afternoon and evening for the coast. Otherwise, you're looking at none through most of the day today. South winds at about 5 knots. Okay, so here it is. Let's wrap up the forecast, get into your neighborhood forecast, sponsored in part by Dignity Health. You've got those temperatures today. It's the calm before the storm today. It's going to be gorgeous. Temperatures in the mid-70s for Trinity County, 60s and 70s for the north coast. And you can see, of course, the off and on showers. I'm keeping the chance in there for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Some of the models just want to keep some, just kind of clipping the coast here, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But overall, it's a drier trend through next week. But you can see here for the inland areas, late afternoon, evening, chance for showers Friday. Otherwise, more off and on showers here. Heavy rainfall at times and gusty winds and cooler for the weekend. For Siskiyou County, it's going to be probably late afternoon, early evening when you start to see some of those showers kick in. And then we've got those continuing here with the wet conditions throughout the weekend. Modoc County, you're going to have to wait until probably Friday night. And then, of course, throughout the weekend and maybe a lingering chance on Monday. For the eastern mountains, you're talking temperatures in the 60s and 70s for today. Friday night, more like Saturday morning when you see most of your showers kind of kicking on in here, and will be heavy at times with that first little push of rain. And then for the valley, down to the south today, temperatures in the mid-70s there. Taking a look at your 7-day forecast for Chico, you're dry through Friday, but by Friday night, Saturday morning, there are those showers off and on, heavy rainfall at times, maybe even an isolated thunderstorm over the weekend as well, even for the valley. Temperatures around 80 as you head north for today, 79 degrees for Red Bluff, and taking a look at that 7-day forecast for Reading. There you can see those temperatures are much cooler over the weekend, but temperatures and also seeing the drier conditions and a drier trend as we go through next week in the low to mid 70s by Tuesday and Wednesday. That's your morning update. I'll be back again at noon for the latest check of your forecast. Have a great morning.
Barr & Mudford is a top established firm here in the North State. Founded over a half-century ago, Barr & Mudford is protecting the rights of our neighbors and community. We take our commitment to our clients very seriously and provide a level of excellence unrivaled in the North State. Barr & Mudford, standing up for the rights of our neighbors and our beautiful community, serving Northern California with excellence.